Evelyn Harrow arrived at Blackthorn Manor under the weight of a gray autumn sky. The towering estate, with its ivy-clad stone walls and arched windows, loomed like a sentinel of forgotten time. Her great-aunt Beatrice had passed, leaving Evelyn the sole heir to a family legacy she barely knew. As the front door creaked open, the scent of old paper and wood polish filled her lungs. A lawyer's letter in her pocket reminded her of the task ahead: inventory the estate and decide its future. But as she stepped inside, the silence felt expectant, as if the house had been waiting for her. Dust motes swirled in shafts of fading light as Evelyn wandered the corridors. Lining the walls were portraits of ancestors she couldn't name, their gazes solemn and watchful. Yet one room in particular drew her in: the attic. There, hidden beneath heavy drapes, she discovered a series of paintings, far more lifelike than the others. They depicted people she'd never met, but something about them struck her as disturbingly familiar. That evening, Evelyn pored over the portraits. The painted faces bore a resemblance to her own, their eyes alight with an eerie knowingness. One painting, of a woman in a high-collared dress, had a haunted look that made Evelyn shiver. As she traced the delicate brushstrokes, she could almost feel the texture of the painted skin beneath her fingertips. Then, in the dim candlelight, she noticed something impossible: a subtle shift, a fine wrinkle that hadn't been there before. Unable to sleep, Evelyn lay in her inherited four-poster bed, the manor groaning around her. Dreams of unfamiliar faces filled her restless slumber, their eyes pleading, their whispers indistinct. When she awoke, she found herself drawn to the attic once more. The paintings, they had changed. The woman with the haunted eyes now bore a fresh strand of gray in her hair. Determined to unravel the mystery, Evelyn searched through the manor's archives. In a locked desk drawer, she uncovered a stack of yellowed letters. They spoke of a family tradition, a ritual tied to the portraits. Her great-aunt Beatrice had written of them as guardians of the Harrow line, tethered to their living descendants. Mrs. Dunn, the aging housekeeper, had served the Harrow family for decades. When Evelyn pressed her for answers, the woman's wrinkled hands trembled. "Those portraits," she whispered, "they watch over you, but they take something in return." Beatrice feared them in the end. As days passed, Evelyn noticed subtle changes in her own reflection. New lines etched into her face, shadows under her eyes that deepened overnight. She stood before the mirror, heart pounding, then rushed to the attic. The woman in the high-collared dress now mirrored her own fatigue. Evelyn sought answers from the local historian, Mr. Whitmore. In the library's dim recesses, she found references to the Harrow family's strange customs, legends of soul-bound portraits, whispers of a curse that grew with each generation. Late one evening, Evelyn confronted the portraits directly. With a lantern in hand, she watched them in the flickering light. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling. The painted eyes seemed to shift, as though considering their answer. Desperate to break free, Evelyn considered leaving the manor, but each attempt was thwarted. Doors jammed, phone lines cut, roads mysteriously blocked. It was as if the house itself refused. Among Beatrice's belongings, Evelyn discovered a final letter, hastily scrawled. "I tried to leave," it read, "but the portraits hold too tightly. They take what they need, and we are bound to them. Find the hidden canvas and burn it." Following the letter's cryptic clues, Evelyn unearthed a concealed painting in the attic's deepest recesses. Unlike the others, it depicted a bleak, featureless figure, an empty shell waiting to be filled. With trembling hands, Evelyn doused the hidden canvas in kerosene and struck a match. Flames roared to life, licking hungrily at the painted surface. The manor groaned as if in protest, the other portraits flickering with an unnatural light. One by one, the figures within them seemed to fade, their hold over Evelyn loosening. The fire spread rapidly, consuming old wooden beams and peeling wallpaper, filling the attic with thick, acrid smoke. Evelyn coughed, shielding her face as she stumbled back. Shadows twisted wildly in the flickering light, and she could almost hear whispers, pleas for salvation or vengeance. She couldn't tell. As the fire spread, Evelyn raced through the smoke-filled corridors, the manor's grip weakening with every step. Portraits blackened and cracked in the heat, their painted inhabitants screaming silently within their frames. She stumbled down the grand staircase, each step a fight against the growing inferno. Flames licked at her heels as she reached the front hall, but the heavy oak doors groaned in protest, resisting her escape. Evelyn threw her weight against them, coughing violently, her vision blurring. Then, with a final desperate push, they gave way, sending her sprawling onto the damp grass outside. She turned back just in time to see the roof collapse, sending embers into the night sky like fireflies. Outside, the wind carried the scent of burning timber and something else, something old and bitter, as if the house itself was exhaling its last breath. Evelyn watched in awe as the flames engulfed Blackthorn Manor entirely, the once imposing structure reduced to a skeletal silhouette against the night. She swore she saw figures within the flames, their anguished faces disappearing as the fire consumed them. A sense of finality settled over her, but a small voice in the back of her mind wondered, had she truly broken free or merely set something loose? In the days that followed, Evelyn found herself unable to shake the feeling that she was still being watched. In mirrors, in shop windows, even in the reflection of a puddle, she thought she saw faint outlines of those familiar painted eyes. The weight that had pressed against her chest for days was gone, but a strange emptiness had taken its place. She dreamed of the portraits at night, of their faces melting into shadows and reaching for her, their whispers curling like smoke around her ears. Despite the lingering unease, Evelyn resolved to move forward. She sold the remaining estate lands and moved to a small cottage in the countryside, far from the shadows of Blackthorn Manor. There, she found solace in the mundane, gardening, reading, and long walks in the crisp autumn air. Yet, every so often, she would pause at a reflection, tilting her head just so, and swear she saw a flicker, just for a moment, of a face she thought she'd left behind. And sometimes, late at night, she would hear the faintest creak of a floorboard and wonder if the house had truly burned away, or if it had simply found another way to linger.